Did God put you there or did you? And this is a question that I asked myself a couple months ago when I was going through some hard times. And realistically, now looking back on it, I put myself there. The hard times that I was going through was because of me. The things that I was doing, I didn't have God's guidance, right? I didn't have God's protection. I didn't have God's wisdom above me, right? So the reason I was going through a hard time was because I kept making the wrong decisions, because I kept relying on my own wisdom, which was totally wrong. And what we plant in our daily lives, right? What we plant is what we harvest. And it tells us this in Galatians chapter 6, verses 7. It says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatever one sows, that will he also reap." So he reaps what he sows, right? Meaning he harvests what he plants, in other words. And it's not telling us that God's waiting to punish us, God's waiting to put us through a hard time, God's waiting to put us all through all these struggles, right? But it's telling us that the choices we make and the seeds that we plant, right, those determine what we go through. Those determine what happens in the future. And if we plant the wrong seeds, then that's going to have consequences. And when I was going through these hard times, right, I totally could have avoided it. And I could have had an easier life, technically, if I just came back to God and relied on God. But I didn't do that. And I think sometimes people blame God for the things that we've done. And think about a lie, right? If we lie, we have to make another lie on top of another lie, and eventually it collapses, right? That's the consequence of lying. It all falls apart. If we go and spend recklessly and buy a car, buy another car, put all these loans on us, and just spend recklessly, right? We're going to be in debt, right? That's the consequence of spending recklessly. And then we ask, God, why are you doing this? God, why are you putting me through this hard financial time? God, why are you making my story collapse or whatever, right? But God isn't punishing us. That's just a consequence of our sin. Sin punishes itself, right? Like I was saying, a lie creates distrust, right? The story falls apart, right? Pride creates division. Lust creates emptiness, right? We think we're going to be fulfilled and we're going to experience this and it's going to be great, but it leaves us empty, right? We all know that. God doesn't have to punish our sin because it does it itself. It's destruction. That's what sin is. I've talked a lot about this recently. And if we look at the story of David, this is a perfect example because he committed adultery with Bathsheba, right? And he arranged for her husband to be killed, right? Uriah. But eventually David repented and God forgave him. But the consequences still remained, right? His family and his descendants experienced a lot of conflict and pain because of that. Because forgiveness and consequences are totally different, right? You can be forgiven, but you're still going to experience the consequences. Just because God forgives you doesn't mean that He's going to make all your problems go away, but a lot of times He'll use those problems to teach us things. And that is very powerful because we can put ourselves in situations and we can put ourselves in hard times. And when we come back to God and ask forgiveness and He forgives us, He can utilize those to teach us. And that's just so powerful because God, that's who God is, right? God is so powerful and loving and forgiving. But also, every hard season isn't your fault, right? God does sometimes put us in a harder season to test us, to test our faith and to make us stronger. And everything bad doesn't happen because of you, but this video is about determining if you put yourself there or if God puts you there. In James chapter 1, verse 2 through 4, it says, "Consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds, because you know the testing of your faith produces perseverance." And this is such a powerful verse because it's telling us that we should be happy to be tested because we're growing, we're getting stronger, we're getting closer to God, all these things, right? And God does allow difficulties sometimes because He's shaping us into who He's called us to be. He's not punishing us. But if we look at someone like Joseph, his life makes this clear, right? He had a very difficult life. He was sold into slavery, betrayed by his brothers, falsely accused, put in prison, all these things, right? But none of that happened because Joseph was sinning and rebelling against God, but he was trying to honor God. But God used all these things that happened to him into the man he became, right? Joseph says that everyone intended harm against him, but God intended all that harm for good. And sometimes what we think is punishment is really just preparation. And when we're getting prepared for a new season, we need to be that strong. We need to be that mature. God is preparing us to become the person who he's called us to be so that we can receive that new season, right? He has great things in store for us, but he can't just give it to us, right? Because we're not ready. We're not prepared enough. So he prepares us in these ways to receive these new seasons. And that's just such a powerful thing. So if you're trying to figure out if God put you there, if you put yourself there, ask these questions. Ask if you ignored wisdom, if you ignored conviction, if you're experiencing the harvest of the choices you've made, meaning in your past, if you've planted some bad seeds, are you harvesting that? Or is God using this season to strengthen and prepare you? And just know that even if you put yourself there, even if you've made some mistakes, God can redeem it, right? God is all powerful. He's all knowing. He has a plan for you. He has a way out. Don't try and figure it out on yourself. Romans chapter 8, verse 28 tells us, and we know that in all things God works for the good for those who loves him. He doesn't tell us that all things are good, but he says that God works through them. And even failures, even consequences, even the bad things, he can still redeem them and give you another shot. So to conclude, not every hard thing comes from God. Sometimes it can come from you. But either way, God can redeem it. Either way, God is preparing you as long as you rely on him. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something, and I hope you stay tuned for the next video.